the June Radnor Township School District Facilities Committee meeting. First item on the agenda is introductions and administrative remarks. Michelle, Todd? None. Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there, I think there might be. I got a signal.
Hello, Judy Sherry, Governor's Circle, Newtown Square. Today, when you click on the Facilities Committee meeting on the home page, you are taken to information about meetings of the Government and Communication Committee. So, as a frequent participant, I can easily figure out, oh, this is not the right committee. But I do think it's the responsibility of the chair to make sure that materials that are included in a meeting are posted correctly online, because accidents happen.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
You're welcome. The May 2nd, 2017 minutes from this committee reference the pedestrian Radnor Elementary Bridge and state that the committee suggests that Radnor Township School District reach out to the township about the repairs and also should revisit the agreement. That's the tri-party agreement. This agreement was mentioned in a prior committee meeting and the finance. And I wondered what the status of this initiative is, and also if members were given a copy of the tri-party agreement to review. I think there's always opportunities to renegotiate something. And there was a concern mentioned that the numbers of students at Radnor Elementary School, could potentially cause some issues there. So I think there was a discussion about whether there was a limit to the numbers in that school, but the fact that the pods in that school are now being used as classrooms, and they really weren't designed for classrooms. They were designed for meeting areas. So I think that should be part of the Facilities Committee. And this actually was also brought up, I think, earlier by Ms. Dekow, but I'm going to ask it again, if future facility rentals, which you're looking at tonight, could be done electronically. And a question which probably will be answered when the presentation occurs, but how does the new proposal differ from the current rental application? I think some of the rates might have been changed, but I wondered, were there any other differences in the current rental application and the proposed new one? And also because I've mentioned this several times, I wondered where does the Catalyst SAT prep fit in the different categories in this particular rental application? Do they pay rent? What section do they occur in? Thank you.
Thank you. So did the copy that we got, is this not what was distributed on the table over there?
No, that should be everything that was distributed on the table. Nothing has changed in that facility.
I read this to say that we had the proposed and then we have the current one. So we have the information from both, right?
You do.
Yeah, okay.
You don't have a side-by-side comparison.
No, but
you do.
Go back, you do, because you can go back and forth. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was reading this properly.
Okay. So Mr. Perchetti has joined us this evening. He's going to talk to you a little bit about the differences between the proposed facility rental application and what we are currently doing. One of the things Joe and I started talking about probably back after Mr. Burnaby left was that we needed to take a look at our facility, the amount that we're charging for our facilities, as well as our application, to make sure that we are covering our costs whenever possible.
Michelle, can we, I guess we should approve the minutes before we get into item number 1.
You're absolutely right. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. My mistake. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 2nd, 2017 meeting. Committee? Okay, so the minutes stand as written. Thank you. Okay, then moving into agenda item number 1, the use of the facilities.
So, Joe, if you could start out, tell us a little bit about the electronic things that you've been looking at. I know that I've sent you a couple of them over the last few months. If you could tell us a little bit about those different packages, and then if you could walk us through the proposed and the proposed new application and rental fees.
Michelle, can I just ask Joe, before you begin, could you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you are so that the people out there will know your position and how long you've been with us? And
Certainly. Thank you very much, Mr. Madden. Good evening, members of the school board, community, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you here this evening. My name is Joseph Perchetti. I'm the head of security for the Radnor Township School District. And I landed here in October of 1992 after a stint in the Army during the first Gulf War. I was locked into South Korea at the demilitarized zone. My father wound up getting orders and deploying, and my mother was nervous about that, but she was nervous about me staying in Korea. So long story short, I landed here. I'm glad I landed here. It's been a wonderful, wonderful cruise. Recently, further, Mr. Madden? Okay. Recently, we were, the school district was awarded through NICE and the National Education Association is one of the safest in the nation. I'm very proud of that. I'm also very proud that in Mr. Batchelor, Mr. Wood, and myself primarily had the same responses. It wasn't all the fluff. It was the interaction. It was the yes, the relations with the children in the community. It just goes by far. The first question regarding why we're here this evening, which is facility applications and the perhaps revisement of the current plan. A lot of emails were sent my way, as well as a lot of colleagues were consulted to see how they are doing their facility management. Most I found were either doing it the way that we use, or through School Dude. There were others out there. They really weren't cost effective as to what our how many uses we were doing and what our revenue was from the usage. So all hard copies and electronic formats were reviewed. I would prefer, close to 2018, perhaps going towards an electronic method, and that would seem to be right. For now, as I mentioned, cost effective and the amount of times that we use it, it just didn't seem to be the next best thing. So on to the current application and the proposed application. One of the things that we were looking at, let me give you some background on the facility application process. My former superior, Leo Burnaby, and we reviewed this between 2007 and 2008. It was the last time the system was reviewed. At that point, we had a lot of community input. We appreciated it. Cub Scouts, Little Leagues. I'm sorry if I'm missing some of those most important community sports, but primarily them were very vocal in this, and rightfully so. So we made accommodations, and we developed the fee hierarchy structure. You turn to your packets. It's after the application, after the technology request, after the use of facilities like the protocols, which are front and back. We go down to user classifications, which is the very last page, and on that last page is our current fee structure. There was a question posed earlier about Catalyst Prep. I believe Catalyst prep is managed by a current employee or a former employee of the district, Catalyst Prep, since they are in that category, would fall under Class A. District residents, current or former employees, Radnor grads, and no admission fees. Excuse me again. One of the items that we learned just recently, within the past, well, since August, September of 2016, was that we probably weren't recouping everything that we need to do with service fees on weekends. So we did an enormous survey of that. What is maintenance technology, security, custodial doing, and are our renters being charged accordingly? Somehow, nobody was ever overcharged. Certainly put that out in advance. We were probably undershorting ourselves. So that was another thing. I met multiple times with Ms. Decal and Mr. Stitzel, go over what their current rates are, what our overtime rates would be, and what the holiday rate would be. You can find those in the second part of that packet that you were handed this evening under proposed. It's on the very last page, just past the user classifications sheet, which I talked about in the current one, which also has the fee structure on the back of that. Since this is a new document, we added that for you for the proposed section. And you'll see support service rates, hourly, Monday to Saturday, Sunday, and then holiday, and it depicts everything, what those rates are. Differences between the current and the proposed, certainly the increase in rates, increase in service fees. Reason why the increase in rates, I did a study of our neighbors within and outside of the county. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different school districts in this county. All 5 of them do it by paper. None of them did it electronic. Found out that a lot of our current methods, they emulated from us. So it was a little difficult in asking them for updated data when they were still using ours from 2007, 2008. So I went out further without giving plugs to the local community organizations, Marple Sports Arena, YMCA, so on and so forth. What are your rates for your lifeguards, your pool supervisors, your large group instructional rooms, so on and so forth, just so I can perhaps have a comparison as to square footage from there, square footage in our locations, almost to an apples, if you will. That's how we developed the updated fee structure in the proposed packet. That's how we were able to determine the service support rates, as well as looking internally as what our standard rate, our overtime rate, and our holiday rates are. And I'm happy to say, it's a dollar figure. Should I announce that? No? Yes? No? Okay. There. That's all I have.
So we're happy to answer any questions that you have. I'll give you a little bit of information about what we'd like to see in terms of the timetable. We currently have applications that have already been completed for 17-18 school year. We would not go back and try to retroactive those rates to try and, to increase the amount being charged to the individuals whose application has already been approved. I noticed there's a little bit of cleanup work that needs to be done on this yet. It may not be ready to go on the June board agenda. It may be presented on the August board agenda for board approval with the new rates. And we would continue to use those old rates for any applications that have been in the works since then. We would then, once it's approved, communicate to some of our regular groups who we know that We haven't been charging everything that we should to let them know that the rates are going, that the rates have increased and that they should anticipate a larger facility rental cost in the future when they use our facilities. I want to thank Joe for looking at that, as well as Todd. One of the things that Todd and I found when we took over operations was that this hadn't been looked at for almost 10 years, so 9 years, and it really was time for it to be looked at again.
What does LTS stand for? You have,
Yes, ma'am. That stands for field lights.
okay.
Some of the users will be assessed a fee for
Oh,
use
I
of the
see it, yeah.
And if it's after dusk,
$15.
$15 an hour, which that stays in track with what our billable rate is through PICO.
Okay. Well, I looked over this, and it looks like in some categories, or a lot of them, it's basically doubling. And I really don't have a feeling for how that's going to affect various groups that use this. So I guess I'm saying I trust, that this is, how would you say it, current market rate? I really don't know, though. I really don't know if it's going to impact certain groups negatively that we really don't want to cause harm to. I just don't know.
I tell you what, when I did the concentration on this, most certainly took into account our local and community groups. I did not touch their categories with the usage of the facilities. What was adjusted for them was where the district was experiencing, let's just call it a negative, because we were applying the service fees for those groups.
Okay.
Are there many of them? There's many groups. Are there many times where those service fees are required for those groups? Not that often. So taking that into account, those community agencies, the Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, the Little Leagues, they did not see that. The outsiders, no offense, but non-school district, non-township affiliated individuals, we love them. We love them to come use our facilities. They're wonderful facilities. That's where a lot of the increase in charges were applied, because from seeing those other school districts and those comparisons, we were very well under par.
Okay.
So yes, you did say approximately double. Some places it could have been.
Yeah.
We just didn't double everything off it. Everything was by line. We looked at it.
What it would actually cost.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
ma'am. And taking into account the extensive spreadsheet that we have on all the facilities usage from when we started this back in the 2000s or late 90s.
Okay, so I guess I just need maybe just more information. So like, what category, just throwing out potential groups, so like the Chinese school, what category would that go in? I'm just.
Very good
trying to get
question.
some idea.
I actually don't have that answer because
Okay, that's fine.
Chinese school has, I believe, an agreement with the district.
Okay,
I believe.
okay,
So that was, instead of it being, 30 classrooms at $5 apiece for 13 weekends, so on and so forth, they most certainly are being charged in accordance with that, but they're also seeing an increase with the service fees because they're there so much, because they rely on the maintenance staff, and because there's so much custodial support required, just to make sure, not that they leave behind debris, but we need to make sure that the facilities are cleaned up for the next school day.
okay, so a group like that has a separate agreement, but it will see increases to cover actual costs.
Those will have
that
to be
have
gone
been
over
incurred in the
case by
past.
case.
Okay, and so take another, like, hypothetical. So say a private dance studio wants to have their end-of-year recital in our facility. What category would they fall under, for example?
An end-of-year dance recital, somebody not within the district, not associated with the district, they
Yeah.
would be under Class G. They are a local, for-profit organization.
Okay,
They're charging tickets at the door, parents, siblings,
Right.
grandparents, so on and
Right.
so forth.
Yes. Okay.
They have quite a bit of service and support applied to them.
Okay.
Technology, maintenance, security, sometimes security, custodial, definitely. And so, Class G, and if you flip on the opposite side under the old or current form, Class G use of Radnor High School for 4 hours was only $600.
Right. And now it's 800. Yeah, I see. So it went up to reflect that. Okay, take another hypothetical. So the Katie Sampson Lacrosse Festival, I think
Good
it's called.
question.
What class would that be?
Well, we are so happy to have Ms. Katie Sampson as a former graduate and alumni here, so Katie would certainly fall under Class A. Her group,
Okay.
they would be charged field space. They would be charged for custodial cleanup.
Okay.
But I tell you, that group is phenomenal. They come in, not that they take over, but the maintenance supervisor, custodial supervisor, and security supervisor, when that group is in, it's phenomenal. All the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Wonderful, a high-speed staff to work with.
All
So
right.
that's a good example of a group who has a lot of requests, has a lot of needs, even though we do enjoy having them here, and it's a great fundraising event for them. They might ask for a porta potty, they may ask for a dumpster, and we have been covering the cost of those things. So we would bring in a porta potty that we normally would
Right.
not have on the grounds because they would like it located in a specific space.
You don't pass those costs back through?
We had not been, and that was one of the things that we started
Okay.
talking about, is
Okay.
that if they are requesting specific field lining, for example, for an event, and we have to take our maintenance staff off of what they would normally be doing for the district to line their fields, that should be passed on to them. I don't think it's unreasonable for a group
No, I don't
to
either. I
expect that
just
they
wanted
should
to
pay
know.
it, especially when we're looking at such tight budget constraints. We need to make sure that the district's not subsidizing those costs for those
Right,
groups.
right.
And I think actually the two examples you gave are different. So one is district staff that we're moving around, and another is we're incurring a third-party cost. So I think they should both be passed through for sure, but most certainly a third-party cost where we're actually laying out funds. I think that has to be recouped.
And one of the reasons why we kept looking at the electronic methods of facility usage and applications was because of the ease of that. We didn't have to circular or run over, get my calculator. It's all done with these online through the application or through the software. So that was all extensively looked at.
Okay, good. I just wanted to understand a bit more what these definitions were.
So it may not be on the agenda for approval at the
Okay.
June meeting because there's still a little work that needs to be done on it, but expect to see it in August. We would probably ask you to approve it in August and have an implementation date of sometime later in the year, like September 1 or possibly January 1st. For new applicants only. So, for example,
Okay.
the fireworks group,
Oh.
the scholarship fund, they've already got their application in. We're not going to go back and say, you're
Right.
going to owe us additional funds.
Now, for an event like that where you do have to have extra security, where does that cost go? Are they charged for the extra security? That's basically that has a lot of cleanup involved with that also. So, do we run do we know how much we pay? And
Very good question,
how
Mr.
much they pay and how
Very
much
good
we
question,
lose?
Mr. Madden. We do have that tracked. We know how much in security is being utilized for that evening, and same with maintenance, manpower for the cleanup, and custodial supplies, since there's certainly a lot of toiletries that are used that evening.
Do we get involved with the local police for events like that? Do we coordinate with them or with the EMTs or anything like that?
I tell you, another very good question, and for the community's use or knowledge, Radnor High School Scholarship Fund contracts directly with Starfire, the fireworks company. Radnor High School Scholarship Fund communicates directly with Radnor Fire Company, Radnor EMS. So fortunately for me, where I would believe I would be doing that as head of security. My contact, Mr. Art Lewis, is doing that for us. So those are always done the day before, the day of. Township police, the health code inspector, the fire marshal, sometimes chief of police, and the township manager are out looking at the canisters, the locations where those fireworks are being set off from. Nobody does not want an accident on this location, on this campus, and they are going over there tooth and nail. Two-way radios are provided for them on their own separate channel, so that there is no crosstalk interruptions. These guys, we don't go anywhere near them. They're professionals, and it's been wonderful every year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask you one more question about a youth group, or youth student athletic group? So the Radnor Aquatics uses the pool for many hours for practice and meets, and it looks like it was listed as $20.
Radnor Aquatic Club has a special arrangement with the
Okay.
district. It's not covered by that application. It's for a specific set
Okay.
number of hours at a specific rate.
Got it. All right.
If I may, if they so choose to use a certain area of the facility, sometimes they'll have a parent meeting up in the black box. They are charged accordingly and in accordance with the class, the fee structure on this.
Okay.
So because that's above and beyond their use of the pool and their agreement.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a great evening. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you, you too. All right, moving on, agenda item number 2, updates on,
So we did two very large bids, one larger than the other, in the month of June, and I wanted to put it on the agenda so you would be aware that it will be under finance on the board agenda for approval at the June 27th meeting. The first one we did was for propane buses. You will see two bids on the agenda. One will be accepted and one will be rejected. We will then be awarding one wheelchair bus and two 73-passenger vehicles. All of them are propane. The total cost is over what we have budgeted. It's $280,000 for those vehicles, but we intend to sell some vehicles and we have some scrap, and we believe that will get us back down to the budget of $251,000. In regards to the high school auditorium, we did some repairs to that before the musical just to make sure that it was patched and could be operational during the musical. We're now doing an upgrade to the system. We had 3 interested bidders. We're going to have that acceptance on the board agenda on the 27th, and we will be awarding the bid as an alternate to one of the vendors. It did come in under budget, so we were very happy about that.
can you just go over the buses that we are purchasing again? Is this on our last page here? I thought we were going to buy 4.
Well, we weren't really sure how many we were going to buy. It depended. So we bid it as 1 bus, 2 buses, 3 buses, 4 buses, and 1 wheelchair bus,
Okay.
just depending to see what the pricing was. We knew we weren't going to be able to afford 4 buses. We were hoping that we might be able to afford 3 propane buses and the wheelchair bus. The wheelchair bus came in about $14,000 more than anticipated.
So we're just getting 2.
We're getting 2 regular passenger buses
And a
and
wheelchair
1
bus.
wheelchair bus.
Okay. And does that now get us back into our replacement schedule?
It does not get us back on the same replacement schedule because remember, we deferred for a year and a half when we were looking at the propane. So typically, we would have purchased 4 to 5 buses of diesel. Propane are a little bit more expensive, but we're finding that we get better service from them. John Hearn and I did go over the bus replacement schedule before we made the recommendation to not purchase buses in 16-17 and move those to 17-18. We do think that the replacement schedule is doable, and we think that in some cases we might have been replacing the buses a little sooner than we should have been.
So I know that we deferred this for a year, so now it seems we're deferring it again. So you could say we're 2 years sort of off our planned schedule for,
We're actually
bus replacement.
we're 1 year off of our schedule, but this will put us back on the schedule to purchase the buses in the summer, which is what we were trying to do.
okay.
And Michelle, there was also some discussion when we discussed the propane, that they might have a longer useful life than a diesel. Isn't that correct? So if we continued on that propane path, the ultimate schedule for replacement is going to stretch anyway because we anticipate a longer life from those buses. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. And we do have a spare fleet as well. And we're fortunate that when some of our neighboring districts need a bus, that they come and they utilize our bus, and we have a reciprocal agreement where if we need a bus and they have the ability to loan us one, they will do so as well. So I think to address your concern, Ms. Solomon, I believe that we're getting it back on track to do that replacement in the summer, which is our preferred time to do it as opposed to in the winter.
Right, so I agree with that. I'm not questioning, I guess I'm not questioning the experts in this field. I personally saw what happened with our buses this year, and I think we're really on the edge of being irresponsible with what I saw with regard to, I can't go into too many details, but our buses failed us on a few occasions, and it was not I don't think if people knew the details that they would be okay with that. So I want to make sure that we are replacing them so that those kind of things don't continue to happen where kids are stranded out there.
I can certainly ask Mr. Hearn to come to the next meeting and have a discussion with you and have a discussion with this committee in regards to that. The buses that you're referring to are part of a class action lawsuit. Can't really give a whole lot of details in regards to that. They're buses that we have been in the process of replacing. We only have a couple of those vehicles left. Most of them are in our spare fleet. So I don't think it's as concerning as you might imagine.
Okay, well I'm pleased to know that.
And you told us about this class act, that these things were part of a class action suit at the last meeting we had, or the meeting before even. It's been known for a while, though.
I didn't know it pertained to the
Yeah.
experience that I am referring to.
Okay.
Thank you.
But as we said, moving forward, we will know we're getting these buses this summer. So then we'll discuss what we want to do, and we'll have more time and more information about what we want to do with replacement the next time. Okay? All right.
Are we moving to agenda item number 3?
Yep, I think we're ready.
So across the district, we're doing multiple carpeting and flooring projects. All the buildings will be seeing some kind of projects happening. Fencing, I've been talking to the high school and Mr. Friel, and as I've been walking around the district, there are some fences that have become safety issues that we did repair one. But we're going to do a pretty big repair of a bunch of fences at the high school, backstops and those type of things, so we can get back up to speed. They may have been gone a little too long before replacing, and we did have some concerns. So you'll see a lot of fencing happening over the summer and into the fall. The high school auditorium rigging, which is basically the structure that holds everything up there, has not been inspected for a period of time. We had an inspection and we need to do some things with that. So there'll be we got 2 quotes, potential 3rd quote on Wednesday.
Yes.
So we'll be able to then give that to the lowest bidder or state contract in order to get that taken care of. And there is a door up there that we need to fix as well. And there's just various building projects going on, from putting a window in at Wayne to the courtyard at the high school that the students have raised money for. So it's just a vast project. So you'll see a lot of activity happening in the buildings this summer. And I met with Corps of Maintenance gentlemen yesterday that we could go over everything to then prioritize. So we're going to list everything and we'll prioritize it later this week. But we've given everybody some work to get started, and then we just want to fine tune it to the end of this week, beginning of next week.
Can you update us on the Ithan Playground?
Go ahead.
The Ithan Playground, we had a final meeting last week. We had a few issues with the hill slide. The contractor, Recreation Resource, is a great contractor. They came out. They're doing a little bit of additional work to address the concerns that Ms. Broylan and Mr. Herbert, the custodian, brought to their attention. It's not done yet. It's going to be done at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. We have plans to reseed the grass area, and hopefully it should be ready and open by the time the kids get back to school.
And because of the size of the playground equipment, we actually had a tree contractor come in and take some branches back so the students couldn't touch those limbs back to the fence. Because it's a great playground system, it was just higher than we expected, so we also had that tree trimming taken care of, so the students are safe.
If you haven't had a chance to see the amount of equipment out at the Ithan Playground, it's really impressive. Take an opportunity to go out and take a look at it.
So, of course, that brings up a new issue of parity between our elementary schools. Is it on par with what we have for students at all of our schools?
I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you that the Ithan PTO contributed a large portion towards that playground equipment. The district contributed $40,000, and the Ithan PTO contributed over $83,000 towards that project.
Wow.
As part of the summer projects or future projects, have you looked into converting the lights to being the athletic field lights that the community youth groups use for sports to being on timers, and like the township is able to turn them on when you call them on the phone. Somebody's get there, has an app on their phone. It's kind of crazy, but the rest of the township fields are on a timer, because I know that when I was coaching soccer and then lacrosse and that kind of thing, they either aren't on when we paid for the field because we had to find one of the security guys wandering around, or they would shut off before the time was up, because the guy was, like, well, I'm done here at the building, and would shut them off and then drive away, and we're still out there.
We have talked about that briefly. We are moving to the iPad, one of the maintenance gentlemen for the cooling and heating in the buildings. He'll have access through an app on the iPad that he'll be able to connect wherever he is if we have adjustments. So the goal was to get there, but I don't know specifically what we need for the light situation.
It should just be something to look into, because I know in the fall when it gets dark early, you're up. They rent the field, and then it's.
I'm actually meeting with the maintenance guys. I think it's Thursday, so I'll bring that up and see what we would need, and we can bring it back in August if we would need to. If it's a huge amount, but if it's minor apps and those type of things, we may be able to do it.
Yeah, maybe we could hit up some of the community groups too.
Okay. Anything else? Committee? Okay, I think we're up to public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
Turned on now. I have questions about the application for facility use. What I believe I heard from the presentation was that the Catalyst Prep would qualify under Class A school-sponsored activities because I guess one of the people involved in Catalyst Prep, I don't know who it is, was a former employee. So am I correct then in stating that if you ever worked for our district, even though you no longer work for the district, you can come back and qualify for Class A school-sponsored activities with no rental fee because you were a former employee at some time?
It's actually Class E.
Oh, E.
E.
Okay, sorry. Oops, Class E. So I didn't hear him correctly. So district residents, current, former EEs, employees, I guess that's what it is, Radnor grads, qualify for Class E?
As long as they're not charging an admission fee.
Well, Catalyst charges $175 for students to participate. So
That's confusing, because I thought that he said there's no fee, but under Class E, there would be a fee, so
I need to look into that because I do know that they have an informational session where they do not charge an admission fee, so that
but
kids can
these are
find it.
weekend boot camps for like Saturday and Sunday, and they do charge $175 for that. At least that's what's on their website. And that's my
I'll look and I'll
recollection.
report back.
Thank you. I appreciate
welcome.
that. And I think it's worth considering whether we really think that just because somebody at one point worked for the district, that they should get some kind of a benefit if they're sponsoring a for-profit program. So I would question that. I guess it's hard for me to understand some of the other categories. For example, on the application, it states, turn down the page, percentage of Radnor Township residents. So what kind of percentage of Radnor Township residents do you need to be able to benefit, say, from a better category? And how do we check up on that? I mean, so that's part of the application process. I don't really understand exactly how that works and what kind of a percentage we're requiring for you to qualify for a category. Does anyone have an answer for that? Maybe that's something that you're going to check into.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, thank you. That would be helpful. And again, I would just put to the committee, because I once worked for the district, should I really be grandfathered in? I don't know. If I'm a Radnor grad and don't even live here, say, and maybe I live in TE or some other place, and because I graduated from Radnor, do I deserve a real big benefit from that? I don't know if it's a big benefit. I haven't really analyzed it, but
It just goes from F to E. So, for instance, the theater would be, instead of 100, you'd pay 80, and the former resident. I think your other point, though, which we'll come back to, is the admission. I don't have a problem giving it at a cut rate to former employees or Radnor graduates, as long as they're not charging admission. If they're doing something and they're making money off us, then that is something else. So, but we are going to look into that.
okay.
Yeah, I heard something completely different, so we need some information. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, and again, community youth groups, no rental fee for field use only by community youth groups. Okay, that would be a township-run group, I assume? That's a community, maybe I just need a better definition for what constitutes a community youth group. Is that something, could that be something else other than township run?
It could be Little League. It could be a community swim team, youth swim team. It could be a township program. The township does use a lot of our fields. So it could be a variety of things.
Right, but when we say community, is it a Radnor community? Are they Radnor students, or Radnor, doesn't have to be Radnor Township School District students, but do they live in Radnor? Are they residents?
It does not have to be composed of 100% residents, and it does not have to be established in Radnor to be a community youth group. It could be a community youth group from a neighboring township or something like that, and they would be given a discounted rate.
No rental fee for field use, even though it's in another township.
Correct. As long as they're not charging admission fee.
But these artificial turf fields are expensive fields, and I just would point out that, I think that people that live here, that pay taxes, that have children here, yes, I can see why they would benefit, but I'm not sure whether somebody who lives in a different township should be able to come here and,
Because a lot of our kids belong to community youth groups in other townships where they're getting the same cut rate. I mean, my kids play on teams in Tredyffrin, and they pay much less for those youth groups.
they
get
pay
the same,
less than,
They get the
we don't
same.
pay.
They get the same cut rate to play on TE's fields that TE's teams would get. You know, that group, because it spans, I forget how many townships. You know, so there are a community youth group, but it's composed of kids from like 6 different townships. You know, that's why. Because if we started, if we go down,
Well, I could-
if
I
we
could
go down
see-
that, if we go down that path, then
I could see
everyone
having
else
a-
around
I
us is
could-
going to go around.
No,
down
I
that
could
path,
see
and it's
having
gonna
a
be more expensive
cooperative-
for everybody
Right.
to doing.
I could see having some sort of cooperative arrangement, but, you know, so any township could come use it, and that's fine, as long as they don't charge.
Admission, right?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I also would still like to, at some point, have an update on the initiative of reaching out to the township about the repair of the pedestrian bridge, which I brought up earlier.
All right, thanks, everyone. Our next meeting will be in August. I believe it's set for 5 o'clock. I just saw it on August 8th. Thank you.
Good job.